Hello and welcome to the WrestleBlast podcast. My name's David the Anvil Cardiff, and joining me as always is Andre the Rocket Wakefield.
I was going to name myself
foundation.
the Rocket as well.
Oh, amazing. Good choice. Absolute legend, Owen Hart. How you doing, man? You doing well?
Pretty good. Pretty good start to a year so far. What about you?
Yeah. Happy New Year to you. It's been a busy old start to the year. I have to say, I'm back to work, so that's not something I particularly enjoy. But I mean, it's got to be done. So,
well, in my case, everyone is safe. Nobody's sick, so that's a
the
win
main
for
thing.
Me. Yeah.
Absolutely, you're just right, man. You're just right, and I mean, today we're obviously doing, folks, the 1992 Royal Rumble. We're in Rumble season. The WWE is gearing up for the latest one. I won't be watching it, I'll be honest with you, but I don't think you probably will either, Andre.
I might pull it up like as background noise, just the Rumble match, because I don't really care about anything else. The Rumble match is always somewhat intriguing, but. No, I had no interest in that show.
Yeah, I'm kind of surprised they have anyone left to fill a Royal Rumble on both the women and the men's.
They actually have to borrow people. Did you hear about Mickie James?
Yeah, I heard she's doing a one-off after just competing in Impact for the Women's Knockout Championship, I believe, quite recently.
People on Twitter are saying, oh, WWE is opening the forbidden door, but I'm like, dude, they just ran out of people and they need to borrow somebody to throw out. Mickie James is not going to do anything in that match.
I would be very surprised if she gets more than a 5-minute stint in the Rumble, but at least she's getting a payday. I have to celebrate her for doing that. So that's good on her. Good on her. Well, it's quite a lengthy one today, so we're going to get stuck straight into our audio movies, audio and game segment. We have to come up with like a better title than me just saying that. That's kind of a rip-off of like Brainstorm It. Yeah, there used to be a show in on ITV years ago, going back to the early 90s, called Movies, Games and Videos, and it used to basically just go through all of the latest releases. So that's where I stole the idea from for that, amongst other places.
I do think we should say music instead of audio, because when you say audio, I start thinking like technical stuff, like plugging speakers in and that kind of stuff, not exactly music charts.
Okay, so it could be movies, games and music, or music, games and movies. Yeah, something like that. Okay, I'll play about that. MGM, yeah. I'll come up with it. So we'll start off in our favorite place, over in the land of the chart music. Okay, so the UK charts back in the year of our Lord, which was the 19th of January, 1992. And I'll start off at number 10, because that makes a lot more sense now that you told me to do it that way.
Yeah, it's a
number 10. Number 10 in the UK charts, Justified and Ancient, featuring Tammy Wynette. I have no idea. I was about 8 at this time. I know you were probably not born at this stage, were you?
I just turned 1 the month prior.
Wow. Holy shit. Yeah. Amazing. So yeah, I'm going to imagine you won't know any of them on the charts or on this show.
I'm sure I've heard some of them when I got older, but at the time, I had no idea what was on the radio.
Yeah, fair enough. So, sorry, it should have been KLF featuring Tammy Wynette. I think the song is called Justified and Ancient. A confusing one for sure. We've got 2 Unlimited with the Twilight Zone. They were massive at the time, I remember.
I've actually been listening to them lately.
Wow. What's that like?
It's like really going back in time, because like the sounds that they use have not been used in years.
May have to splice that one in just for fun.
Yeah.
Number 8 was Kim Sims, Too Blind to See It, not a clue. Number 7, Genesis with I Can't Dance, which was, I love Genesis. I am a little bit old. My mum used to love Genesis, so I've got a bit of a love for them. Number 6 was CeCe Peniston with We Gotta Love Thang, spelled Thang, of course. We've got Kylie Minogue at number 5 with Give Me Just a Little More Time, which was massive. Kylie Minogue was huge in those days. Number 4 was Kiss with God Gave Rock and Roll to You, 2. Number 3 was The Prodigy with Everybody in the Place. which, I mean, I was a big fan of the Prodigy. We've got Queen at number 2 with Bohemian Rhapsody / These Are the Days of Our Lives. Because I'm not sure if Freddie had just passed away. At that stage, it might have been. But I think he made it into early 90s, maybe late 80s he passed away. And at number 1, we had the soppiest of soppy bands for that day and age. Every 40-year-old's crush, Wet, Wet, Wet with Goodnight Girl. Not a fan of them, but my mom was.
Okay, so the American charts, not a single song that you said is on this.
Wow, okay, this is going to be amazing.
Number 10, we have Wild Side by Marky Mark and the Funky Bunch, which is, of course, Mark Wahlberg's when he was a teenager.
Amazing.
Number 9, we have Blowing Kisses in the Wind by Paula Abdul.
Okay, yeah, I know the name Paula Abdul, yeah.
Yeah, number 8, we have Too Legit to Quit by MC Hammer. That's where the hip-hop is starting to creep up.
Oh, okay.
In America.
Can you call that hip hop? Is it?
Back then it was.
I don't know.
Nowadays it's
sort
just
of
one of those things that old white people listen to at parties.
Very accurate, I'm sure, yeah.
Number 7 is When a Man Loves a Woman by Michael Bolton.
Oh, Jesus.
Number 6 is Finally by CeCe Peniston, which you've mentioned.
Okay, she's there.
Yeah, but different song.
Oh.
Number 5, Set Adrift on Memory Bliss by PM Dawn. Number 4, Can't Let You Go by Mariah Carey. Number 3, All for Love by Color Me Bad. Number 2, It's Hard to Say Goodbye to Yesterday by Boyz II Men. And number 1 is Black or White by Michael Jackson.
Oh, okay. I'm surprised Michael Jackson... I mean, I remember that song being on the UK chart show all the time, and the music video and stuff for it was quite sort of revolutionary at the time. So I'm surprised he's not there, but there's definitely the era of Jackson, I think, at that stage as well. Yeah, amazing. Yeah. Really interesting seeing the differences there.
Yeah.
Okay, well, moving over to the box office, and I've just taken the sort of global, but I think it goes by dollars, so it's technically the Americans as well.
Okay.
So we'll start at number 10. We've got Bugsy, which was the child version, I think, of Bugsy Malone, off the top of my head. Really weird. Number 9 was Grand Canyon. I've no idea what that movie was. We've got The Last Boy Scout with Bruce Willis at number 8. Which was great, which grossed 3,880,000 at the time, I believe, in and around January 10th. We are. Number 7 was JFK. Number 6 was Beauty and the Beast by Walt Disney, obviously the animation. I think I went to the cinema to see that. Great movie. Number 5 was Cuffs, spelt Kuffs. I've no idea about that one. Number 4 was Father of the Bride. With Steve Martin, which is a great movie. Number 3 was The Prince of Tides. Again, not an idea what that is. Number 2 was Hook with Robin Williams portraying Peter Pan, which is great. We just watched it not long ago.
Send Hook.
Send for Hook, exactly, yeah. Tying it back. And then number 1 was The Hand That Rocks the Cradle, which I don't think I've ever seen, but
I've never
it did
seen
very well.
Any of those movies.
Okay.
When I
not
think
even
of
Hook?
Nope, not even Hook. When I think of 1992, I think of Terminator 2, but I don't think that came out yet. That probably comes out later in the year.
Quite possibly, yeah. I mean, drifting further down the list, you have at number 11 Star Trek 4, The Undiscovered Country. You've got Addams Family at number 12. Suburban Commando with Hulk Hogan was at number 13. So it did... Actually, no, it didn't. It did terrible. It did absolutely awfully.
Never mind. Terminator 2 did come out in 1991. Must have been in the summer. Yeah.
There you go. So there you go. That's the movies at the time. And then switching things over just briefly with video games and just a sort of broad strokes of January. I'll try and keep some of the bigger releases because this was a massive year for video games. Especially things like Super Nintendo. You got the Game Boy at the time. The NES is still going strong at this stage. and things like the Atari Lynx and obscure little consoles that lived all over the show. But I guess the main ones would be in January. You've got Prince of Persia on the Game Boy. On the Game Boy. Okay. You've got things like Monster in My Pocket on the NES, which was really big at the time. Monsters in My Pocket. Die Hard on the NES. Random.
I'm sure that was good. I think Angry Video Game Nerd has an episode on that one.
I think he does, and I think it is terrible. Beetlejuice on the Game Boy, Bucky O'Hare on the NES, and things like Darkwing Duck as well came out at the time.
This is like the time of a bunch of movie games.
It is. Adam's Family is also there on the Game Boy and NES, and I actually had that. I had it on the NES, and it was not great.
Yeah, as a kid, I loved them, but now I look back and I'm like, man, those are some of the worst games.
Yeah, but maybe we'll get into another pay-per-view at some stage, and maybe that month will yield better results. But there are some massive video games in that year, shall we say, things like Street Fighter 2. So you can expect more of that at some stage. But there you go. Those were the sort of big hits at the time.
Yep.
So moving across to our pay-per-view today, as we say, January 19th, I believe. Albany, New York, in the Knickerbocker Arena.
Yep.
I was watching the Coliseum home video version. I take it you went onto the WWE Network to get this one?
So I had the Peacock version.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So this is the newest version that they've sort of uploaded.
Probably, yeah. So
there's probably going to be some differences. The home video version that I managed to get, shall we say, from somewhere, had a few Brucey bonuses in it, which are, I think they kind of make the pay-per-view almost for that time period. But when I get to them, I'll tell you all about them.
I did notice a couple spots where it faded to black and then came back, kind of like the TNA pay-per-view that we did. So I'm not sure. Maybe some of those bonuses were supposed to be there.
There's a lot of to the back segments in this one, which is probably what you're missing, which I think you're missing out on. So you're going to have to listen to the audio version of this if you want to hear a lot of those segments, because I'm probably going to end up splicing them in as we get to them.
Okay, we'll see. Before we get started, I have a question for you.
Okay.
How many eye pokes and eye rakes did you count in this show?
This is the era of the eye poke and the eye rake. This is what a way to get heat on someone is to poke them in the eye.
Jesus Christ! Every move was eye poke and eye rake.
I'm pretty sure between Flair and Piper, it was through the roof. Yes. If you took a drink every time Roddy Piper did an eye poke or an eye rake, you'd probably be drunk by the end of his match. And that was like a 5 or 6 minute match. Yeah. So this pay-per-view was the third Royal Rumble. The first came out in 1989. Then you had 1990, obviously, and then fourth technically. So originally, the Royal Rumble was never for the WWE or WWF at that time. The championship. So going into this one, the big tagline is, the championship is on the line for the main event match. So 260,000 buy rate, which was actually down from the 1991 buy rate, which had 440,000. So it was a massive drop between the previous year and this year's buy rate for the actual pay-per-view. The live gate had a sellout of 17,000 fans, paying a total of 210,000, which was pretty much the same from what I could see of the previous year. So even though down in buy rates overall, they still had the same gate, but down overall if you take that into consideration. Getting into our show, the show opens for me, and I would imagine this is maybe different to you, with a slight video package. We get Vince McMahon shouting as loud as he can.
Tonight, WWF Superstars!
It's just pretty much announcing everyone who's in the Royal Rumble and just shouting himself hoarse the various like names of all of the wrestlers in the Royal Rumble, and then they have this hilariously bad like clip art of the wrestlers sort of doing this PowerPoint slide presentation on the screen. So every time he shouts, they do like a fade out PowerPoint wipe onto the screen.
Yeah, and at the start he says, "Tonight the Royal Rumble, including superstars like." So I thought he would name like 3 or 4 of them, but he literally went through like all of them, and I'm like, okay, dude.
Yeah, they also they got Mean Gene to do a version of this as well. So there's a couple of different versions of these older pay-per-views you can get, and they used to swap out people because Vince wasn't on commentary for this show. I think he would come on to commentary. He had done commentary in the past. And he would do commentary in later pay-per-views as well. And they didn't want Vince to be on camera as the president. That's why you have people on this show like Jack Tunney.
Yeah.
But so he did the announcement here because I guess people wouldn't have known that it was him because he wasn't too sort of publicized at that stage of who he was really. We also get a segment where it says Ric Flair, the alleged real world's champion, McMahon says. So I guess we will get into that at some stage, but there's quite a lot of storylines going into this one, so it can be a bit. It's even though it's such an old show, there's quite a lot of like they do really well to sort of tell you about all of these different storylines going into the Royal Rumble and the various matches building up to it. Mm-hmm. But yeah, Knickerbocker Arena, Albany, New York, Gorilla Monsoon and Bobby the Brain Heenan kick us off and talk about the upcoming matches before throwing us to the first match, and Howard Finkel, who is the ring announcer for tonight, and that is the new foundation, which is Owen Hart and Jim, the Anvil Neidhart, versus the Orient Express, Pat Tanaka and Kato, and immediately wong, the racist gong for the Orient Express. 90s wrestling shows they're just gonna 90s it because they just can't help themselves. Owen and Jim come out looking like a pack of highlighters exploded on them.
They look like two guys dressed as Sabu.
Yeah, it's hilarious costumes. Bobby says that the new foundations look like they just got up as they've come out in their pajamas, which I did like. I have to say, Bobby might be my MVP on this show tonight because
he had a few good lines.
He did have a few zingers, and Monsoon was good too because he was just having none of it.
Yeah.
Owen and Kato. Kato is a white man in a mask. He's not actually Japanese. I don't remember the actual guy's name, but I have this impression that he's not Japanese. I think there was a lack of Japanese people in WWF at the time. They had Pat, and that was it.
I have no idea who either one of these guys was.
Yeah, Pat Tanaka had been around for a while, and obviously Mr. Fuji and people like that, but they were very limited at the time. WCW, I think, had sewn up the business in terms of getting Japanese talent over.
Was Pat Tanaka ever in WCW? Because I may have seen him there a couple times.
Most likely, yeah. I'm pretty sure he was a sort of journeyman wrestler.
I may be wrong. I'm going to feel really stupid if I'm wrong, but I think Pat Tanaka was in WCW, and he used Goldberg's theme before Goldberg, but I may be wrong.
Okay, yeah, he was in WCW between, 1994 and then 1998, possibly having a few stints here and there.
Okay.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure he's the one that used Goldberg's theme before Goldberg, which is hilarious because he just walks out like a normal guy.
Yeah, I mean, I think Mr. Wrestling, I think in the WWF had Kurt Angle's theme before Kurt Angle, and obviously I think somebody else had it even after that as well. I think it was Mr. Wrestling or Mr. America. The Patriot, that's exactly it. That is exactly it. Yeah, so Kato is from Zagreb, Croatia. Real name Paul Diamond. There you are. So definitely not Japanese then. Owen and Kato start with a very subdued crowd while Gorilla tells us about the substitutions for tonight's Rumble. So Marty Jannetty is out due to the incident with Shawn Michaels, which we get a nice video package later showing us that. Brian Knobbs is out too, one of the Nasty Boys. So they have Haku and Nikolai Volkov as replacements to replace him. Bobby the Brain basically pays very little attention to this match, I will say. He is just interested in the Royal Rumble and what Ric Flair is going to do tonight. And it wouldn't be fair to Flair if he didn't talk about Flair, so that's all he does. There's an amazing, Owen Hart was in a league of his own, I think, at this stage, because he does a springboard arm drag off the ropes.
The Jungle Boy springboard. I was really impressed, especially for this time period.
Yeah, I can imagine, because I sort of had it in my mind that you would think this would just all be slow, plodding, old, brawly type wrestling, and I'm sure that kind of shocked you. Yeah,
especially in this. Yeah, I was expecting DDT to be the most extreme move, but here was Owen in the opening match he did a couple flips. He did a backflip off the top rope later on too. So I was like, wow,
he did. He did a victory roll pin attempt on Kato as well, which was amazing. Owen Hart's one of my favorite wrestlers, if not my favorite wrestler of all time. So I'm very much looking forward to this AEW Owen Hart tournament that they've got going on.
Yep, me too.
Anvil's tagged in after a while, and he does some big boy power moves, and Tanaka is then tagged in and tries to lift Jim to no effect. Jim delivers an Alabama Slam type maneuver, and there's a second rope elbow from the newly tagged Owen. Owen then does some a tremendous backflip, as you say, off the top to escape Tanaka, and then does an enziguri, which is very few and far between as well, which is amazing. Monsoon mentions Roddy Piper potentially being a double champion today if he wins his match tonight, and the Royal Rumble match, as Bret the Hitman Hart lost his Intercontinental Championship to the Mountie on a house show recently. Bret at the time, they briefly mention it, and they do say it, but as soon as somebody like a commentator says something, you immediately think it's bullshit when they try and sort of weave it in. But Bret actually was suffering from the flu at the time. It was in his book, I remember reading, and it's just well known that at that stage he was working sick. It's no surprise being the WWF, of course.
That's not good. Knowing what we know now about people's health, and even myself, I had heart failure when I was 19, and to this day I'm not exactly sure why, but I believe part of it was because of a viral infection from a flu. I had the flu for 5 weeks, and I was going to work and going to school. So I just can't help but think of that, and you really got to rest up when you're sick, if you can.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And the injuries caught up to Bret eventually, suffering from strokes. He's had a heart attack. He had multiple strokes, I believe. He was paralyzed for a while. It's obviously he would blame it a lot on the concussion, but years and years and years and years and years of taking physical sort of abuse on your body is not good. So it's not surprising at this stage that these guys were going above and beyond, because that was kind of the agreed thing, where if you didn't show up to work, you just weren't going to get paid, because there was no guaranteed contracts at this stage. So Bret was working. Piper came to his rescue after the Mountie was beating up Bret after the match, and then ended up challenging the Mountie for a match on the Royal Rumble card, which happens tonight. So there you go. Owen is kicked in the back of the head by Tanaka as he runs the rope, and Mr. Fuji hits Owen in the side of the neck with his walking stick. Snug looking back elbow by Kato to Owen, and then the lads work Hart over, which includes Owen being sent like a missile into the turnbuckle, similar to how Bret used to sell going into the ropes or into the corner turnbuckle, where he'd have his arms down by his side and just slam into it as hard as he could. There's a crucifix pin attempt by Owen to Kato, but he kicks out to tag Tanaka, who delivers a heel kick and a headbutt to the groin of Owen. And then there's an explosive crossbody by Tanaka to Owen, and it looked like the two men had been in a car crash, the force of this flying crossbody.
Yeah.
Jim is tagged in, but the ref doesn't see it, so the ref ejects him, and then that sort of starts off a segment of Owen getting beaten up. He gets rammed into the second turnbuckle. He manages to get his foot in the rope to break the count afterwards. There's a belly-to-belly suplex to Tanaka by Owen, which was great. but Kato interrupts. There's a pin to Owen before Owen loses his a pin attempt by Owen, but he loses the momentum again. There's a leapfrog splash by Tanaka over Kato to a draping Owen, but Owen gets a double single leg drop kick to both of them, which is again, like, I mean, I'm pretty sure you would never have seen anyone else doing it at that stage, and obviously it's a sort of widely used move now where you've got, like, Adam Cole does it. You know, there's plenty of wrestlers that do it. The crowd erupts for Anvil as he finally gets tagged in. He runs wild, beating everyone up with some snug-looking stiff clotheslines and all sorts. And then Owen does a suicide dive through the ropes to Kato before they get their rocket launcher, in quotation marks, onto Tanaka, which is basically Owen going up to the top rope, and then Anvil sort of pretends like he's throwing him onto Tanaka for the pin and win in 17 minutes and 18 seconds. What did you think of the opening match?
So, of course, first of all, they kept calling Owen just the Rocket. And I'm like, wait, what are they calling him? I wasn't watching this one with headphones, so I was like, the Rocker? I thought that was Shawn Michaels and Marty Jannetty. What is going on? But then I'm like, I had to like look it up on Wikipedia, and one it says previous names used. It says the Rocket. I was like, oh, the Rocket. Okay. In this match, the ref was just having personal beef with the Anvil for some reason. He would just not let him into the match.
Yeah.
It was like 2 or 3 times he got tagged in, but nope, you can't come in. I felt like the match started out good with the flips and everything, but then it kind of started dragging, and it just went on way too long, I think. Surprisingly, though, the crowd was super into it, like the whole time, no matter what. I guess maybe it's just the way the crowds were back then. So it was fine. It's impressive on 1992 levels. But it's kind of hard for me to rate it by today's standards, and I'm kind of torn inside my head. Do I rate it by 30 years ago standards, or do I rate it by today's standards? Because if a match like this was on today's pay-per-view, I think it would be looked at as not very good. Pretty uneventful, maybe. So I'm gonna see what you're gonna give this first.
I give it 3 out of 5 stars.
Okay.
And you know, I thought it was great eventually in the match, but overall, really, really slow start. Obviously, some nice moves by Owen at the very start of the match. I think the deciding factor for me to give it 3, I could go 3.5 on it. Is that it's not the typical match for the time. It's the longest match on the card, bar the Royal Rumble match. Yeah. Owen was in the match for 80 to 90% of the time. Anvil did very little, realistically. And it's an easy, I think, explanation as to why Owen Hart is regarded as like a great wrestler when you see this. And obviously he would go on to have some of the, you know, the best matches, I think, in WWF's / WWE's history, with Bret Hart at, you know, WrestleMania 10. So yeah, it's an easy 3 out of 5 stars for me at the bare minimum.
Yeah, okay.
I think.
So I'm not too far off. I gave it 2.5 for average.
I think that's fair. I think that's fair. Yeah. To the back, Alfred Hayes recaps the Mountie. Now you might not have this because I think this is a Coliseum home video exclusive potentially.
Maybe.
Did you see an odd-looking English man that was creeping around the back? Yeah. Okay, so Lord Al recaps the Mountie and Bret match with a lovely little video package of the house show match. We then get an interview with Sean Mooney with Jimmy Hart and the Mountie, where they both get on like cartoon characters, which was the style at the time. Mountie gets all the tropes in with his comical shock stick in hand, flailing about, and then telling Piper that he'll take his skirt and his manhood because the Mountie always gets his man. And then we throw... go for it.
This is going to be a little bit off topic, but that video package they showed of Bret Hart losing the belt to the Mountie, they had they showed a run-in of Piper, and Piper was wearing the Air Jordan 6 infrareds, which in the sneaker world are like the holy grails. They're like considered super classic. I actually have a pair of those, and they're one of my all-time favorite Jordans. So when I saw him wearing those, I just marked out. I was like, outfit of the night right there.
Amazing.
Yeah, I actually have one, but I don't want to get up and pull them out. I should have had them ready, but whatever. It's not that important. Are
they in like a vacuum sealed bag in a vault somewhere?
No, I can pull.
Are they expensive? I mean, are they expensive shoes or are they?
Well, with Jordan shoes, it's always like the retail price is about $190, but then the resale market, they go for like $300, $400. Like,
wow.
Yeah, they retro them every few years, so they lose value kind of. But they're still regarded as like one of the most classic shoes.
Awesome. Yeah, I did have a pair. The only shoes I had at the time, I think I didn't think I had Jordans, but I had Reebok pumps, which were all the rage.
The John
which had
Cena.
the little. Yeah, they had a little basket. Mine had like a little basketball on the tongue, and then you would pump it, and apparently that did something. Nothing apart from waste your time.
I think it makes the tongue thicker so that it's tighter around your shoe, but I've never had those, so I'm not sure.
Oh, there you go. There you go. Don't know you're living if you don't have a pair of Reebok pumps.
I don't have any Reeboks. I have a bunch of Jordans and Adidas, or Adidas, as it should be said.
Well, we get thrown to Piper, who's elsewhere with Mean Gene, and Piper looks like $1 million. I think this is like Piper at his physical like peak. He's in ripped shape as best as I think he can. Like even I don't know. I mean, his WCW appearance, like when we did the previous WCW pay-per-view, he was looking good, but I just think at this stage, like he would have probably been in his like physical prime.
So the WCW show we did was at the end of 1997, so that was like almost 7 years after this. So he did look good, but he did look noticeably older than he does here.
He still looks old here. That's the thing. He still looks about sort of 40, but he's probably not.
Everybody on the show looks old, even though they're young. It's so weird.
It is really, really weird. Piper. I mean, I praised Piper in one moment, but I'm going to not praise him now because Piper starts with gay slurs. Oh boy.
I didn't notice it for some reason.
Yeah,
maybe he got cut out on Peacock because Peacock is really sensitive, so...
Possibly, yeah. He starts out by saying that the Mountie looks like something out of the Village People and that Jimmy Hart leaves lipstick on the championship belt. Don't know if you got that.
I didn't catch it. If I heard it, I probably didn't think much of it.
Yeah, Piper's sort of promos at this stage, like a couple of years before, he had done one of the WrestleManias where he like basically blackfaced up down the middle. It's a very infamous segment. He was very risque, and not always. I mean, he wouldn't get away with this sort of stuff in 2022 as we are now.
I believe the blackface stuff is no longer on Peacock, so if we ever do that show, that's not...
We'll have to download it from somewhere, I think, if we want to talk about that segment, because it's kind of an infamous segment. He ramps it up to cocaine levels and ends with, "I think you've been dreaming, and I think they've been wet too." And Mean Gene immediately cuts him off, and then we cut back to the ringside.
And he was gasping for air like crazy. It was kind of scary, actually, because after every line, he would go, and then just keep going. I'm like, what?
It was amazing, this classic Piper. I think that's just how he did his promos.
Yeah.
So we've got the Mountie, who is the Intercontinental Champion, versus Roddy Piper for the championship. Mountie's out first, followed by Piper to a mega pop. Piper is like in his iconic kilt, but they've got the bagpipes playing, the black shirt he's got on at the stage, not the white one with the hot rod logo on it, and then the long hair. Looks tremendous.
Yep.
Mountie teases using his shock stick on Piper at the start and the two jaw jack, but Piper blindsides Mountie with his kilt and batters Mountie at the start. There's a running bulldog by Piper to Mountie, which gets a near fall, and even though the Mountie gets the occasional advantage, it's basically the Piper show. He outclasses the Mountie at every single stage. The Mountie is basically the honky-tonk man getting beaten up by the Ultimate Warrior in the first, in their Intercontinental Championship match. And I could say, I mean, Roddy Piper never got pinned at any stage by Hulk Hogan in WWF at the stage, so there's no way the Mountie was pinning him. So it sort of is telegraphed when you look back on it. If you didn't know the results, but you knew a little bit about Roddy Piper at this time, you could probably just pick who's going to win here. Piper fights dirty with eye pokes and bites. Just what's going on? Referee, where are you? What's going on here?
He was practicing the biting for his match with Hogan later in the cage.
It is, yes. He's got a history of biting. He's got a history of biting people. And yeah, it's just endless eye pokes, rakes, just cheating left, right, and center. But it's sort of like, I guess, Ric Flair, in that there's a bit of a bad boy persona behind Piper, which I think is why he's sort of so over. Mountie skins the cat at one stage, which was surprising, like he was preparing for the Royal Rumble, even though he wasn't in it, and then runs at Piper, but ends up hitting Jimmy Hart, who bounces up to the apron, who's shouting with his megaphone and doing all the sort of classic managerial heel tactics. Piper slaps the sleeper onto Mountie for the win in 5 minutes and 22 seconds. And then after the match, he comically stuns the Mountie with his shock stick with a comic sound effect to match. What did you think of this?
So this match, as soon as it ended, I was like, I cannot remember anything from this match. Because I feel like nothing really happened, because it was a glorified squash match, and basically just Piper looking like a star, but not really doing much. So I don't know. This is very strange to me. They might as well just had the Mountie give him the belt without a match.
Yeah, it's not great. I gave it 1.5 stars. Slow plodding match. Piper was super over. It was entertaining for him and him alone, pretty much. But overall, it was not a great match. So yeah, I'm glad it was over in 5 minutes. It felt like longer.
Yeah, I gave it 1.5 also. I noticed, as we keep going through this show, I noticed that during this time period, the star power, like the presence of someone, is so much more valued than like their in-ring performance.
Yeah.
If you just come out, look like a star, and you pose the right way and you yell the right things, the crowd is just gonna go nuts. It doesn't matter, you can eye poke the whole match and they'll go wild. They're gonna react to it like as if you're doing a Canadian destroyer or something.
Absolutely, yeah. This is the body era. This is just before the WWF steroid scandal. Mm-hmm. This is after, Ultimate Warrior's first stint, I believe, as well. I think he was out at this stage because he had tried to get more money. So yeah, this is the body era. This is just before also Vince McMahon would have the WBF, the World Body Building Federation, or something. Mm-hmm. That he tried to do, which was basically presenting bodybuilders like a WWF, presentation. Like they would all have characters and gimmicks. Like somebody would be called like the Magician, Gary Stridham, I think it was. He would come out with a top hat and stuff, and it's really creepy. If you want to laugh hilariously at Vince McMahon basically marking out over muscly men, go and check out the WBF. It's horrendous. To the back, Lord Al, with a Coliseum home video exclusive, is outside a dressing room that just says Hulk on the door. No Hulk Hogan, just Hulk on like a piece of A4 paper, yeah. And a very jovial Hulk Hogan welcomes him in and gives him a fairly generic 29 other superstars brother promo, and a very young looking Hogan here too, but not like a coke high as you might sort of expect. He doesn't do his typical sort of rah 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 brother. It's just, hey dude, what's happening?
He was.
Did you get that as well?
Yeah, he was kind of being a bit more Hollywood.
Yeah,
more Hollywood-like.
Absolutely, yeah. And then we immediately go to the back again, and Mean Gene is with a bunch of meth heads, the Bushwackers and Jameson. These lads can't stand still. Jameson is chewing on his tie. I
wrote down everyone on the show is a cartoon character. They're just...
Explain these characters to me. Just explain these characters to me. I'm sure you've seen the Bushwackers before, but I
actually have a lot to say about them after this match. So
okay. Well, just to paint a picture, we've got these two lads shaking, stomping on the ground, licking the air, sweating profusely, like they've just been at an all-night rave or something in their camo trousers.
There's a line that Bobby Heenan says later in the show that kind of summarizes them. If the Three Stooges had children who also had mental disorders on top of that, they would be the Bushwackers.
Yeah, it's a weird gimmick. Jameson, who's this lad? Jameson is a comedian who was hired by the WWF at the time because Vince saw him in a comedy club, I believe, and liked his sort of weird, nerdy gimmick that he was doing. So it was like, right, get him on, put him on TV. Mm-hmm. So he's got a sports sock which hangs out of his disheveled suit jacket. He's got tape around his shoe, a pin holding his glasses together, and he's got incredibly greasy hair. Like, this guy is like the stereotypical nerd that you would, hear somebody shouting in The Simpsons at the time.
This is the worst kind.
The worst kind, yeah. So we're into our next match. The Beverly brothers, which the Bushwackers called the Beverly sisters, Bo and Blake, with Lanny Poffo, aka the Genius, Macho's brother.
Well, I actually recognize one of those guys as Kenny Chaos from... Oh, no. Mike Enos from WCW.
Mike Enos, who Vince would later then bring into the WWF in the late 90s and take much joy in saying, Mike Enos, and pronounce it like he's got penis as his surname.
Yeah, I just know him as some guy who jobbed to Goldberg a couple times.
Yeah, these guys, unfortunately. I mean, we'll get into it anyway. So, the Beverly Brothers with the Genius versus the Bushwackers, looking butch with Jameson. The Bushwackers lick their way down to the ring. Men, women, children, these lads would not do well in 2022. I have a note here. It says
pre-COVID era for sure.
This is horrendous. Even watching it at the time, I mean, good lord. Monsoon says at one stage that one of the children who gets his face licked would remember it for the rest of his life. And I've got a note here that just says, I bet he bloody does. What was his smiling dad thinking?
God, this is just unbelievable. This is so disgusting. Like, imagine a homeless person with no teeth coming up to you, your 5-year-old kid, and licking their face, just like cheeks and forehead and everything. Ugh.
It is grim. Bobby Heenan says Jameson's parents never got a divorce. No one wanted custody. Chef's kiss. Bobby Heenan's just amazing during this match. 1,000,000 hours pass before this match begins. Like, no joking. I didn't take a time in this, but I'm pretty sure the majority of time was before the bell rang, before anything happened. It's just Butch and Luke stomping around the ring and constantly hanging out of the ropes and waving at the crowd for like minutes. It just goes on and on and on. Luke and Butch get a gay slur chant going against the Beverlys, like sissy. So this crowd starts chanting sissies. There's no bell. The match just starts. Like, no ring bell announces the start of this match. It just begins at some stage, and it begins with pretty much Luke biting one of the Beverlys on his ass. And then they do a stomp around the ring. Their match is 80% taunting, 15% Bobby and Gorilla talking about other things, and 5% wrestling. This is a horrendous match. Eventually, the Beverlys get some offense on the Bushwackers while Jameson complains they're cheating somehow. Bobby says he should be put to sleep, which I burst out laughing when he said it because it was just out of the blue. He just goes, he should be put to sleep.
This match, man, it drove me insane.
It's funny to look back at it, but I was getting angry watching this. The best thing about this match is Bobby Heenan. I've got a note here
that saving says, grace of this match.
I have a note here that just says, I've just written, I've given up, and I just want to hear him complain about Jameson. The Genius paintbrushes Jameson around the face at one stage, and Jameson complains in the nerdiest voice ever. He hated me. He hated me hard.
Yeah, and throughout the match, they kept showing Jameson, like, they were like, go, like, up his face almost with the camera. Yes. And he would just be looking at the crowd like, what? What? I'm like, oh, nails on chalkboard.
Yeah, I've got notes here that just say, fuck off, Jameson.
Yeah, I wrote, Beverly Brothers. Jameson is disgusting. And about the Bushwackers, I wrote, they lick faces and bite asses.
The Beverly Brothers look competent. They do nice axe handles. They do nice moves. There's a nice neck breaker to look. The Bushwackers, however, they have to celebrate every move they do. Anytime one of them drops one of the Beverly brothers on their back, they start doing their stupid stomp around the ring. They start waving to the crowd. It just drags the match down. It is slowed.
Goes nuts. That's the most mind-boggling thing about it all, is the crowd is just eating it all up and going along with it. And I'm just like, what is going on? Did they like drop some kind of gas in the arena to make everyone go crazy, like the Joker or something? Like, what is? I mean, unbelievable.
I remember loving the Bushwackers as a kid, and I think it was because of their look. Because their look is very, it's very different to a lot of the wrestlers at that time. They've got the camo trousers, which were cool in the 90s. It's the urban camo trousers, the black boots. They've got the sort of vests and stuff. They look cool and they do synchronized moves. Looking back on it now, Jesus Christ, this is just horrific. The Beverly brothers win with a double axe off the top. But fucking hell, the Whackers battering ram them afterwards, and then they let Jameson have a shot on Genius. This is 14 minutes and 56 minutes of my life I will never get back. It's in the ether now. I hate this match. There are no stars. I give this a rating of pitch black sky, overcast with clouds, no stars.
Oh my god, I might have to bump up Disco and Jackie because of this match. But I'm giving this half a star. This was trash. Half a star, by the way, is the lowest my personal scale goes. So, Jesus, yeah, man.
Just no stars.
The best part about this match is our conversation right now. This is redeeming it right now. But watching it, I was just like, oh my god.
It's cathartic talking about this because I hate this match so much. This is the worst match I've seen ever, I think, at this stage, apart from Sharmell and Jenna Maraska.
This is like, I've mentioned this before, but I hate the Eugene character. And to some degree, I even don't like the Bailey character when she was a face, because she was kind of like Eugene. Just like happy about everything, hugging everybody, like basically a 30-year-old but acting like a 12-year-old. I don't like that.
Yeah. And
these guys, all three of them, Jameson, Bushwackers, they're like Eugene but worse.
Yes.
They have more.
Yes, they are.
They have more members on their tag team than they have IQ points
or teeth in their head, because they don't have many teeth either. This was not good. Jameson would work with the WWF for a little while longer. Bobby Heenan ended up getting his own talk show, I think on NBC or somewhere, and Jameson was his sort of side character, like who would be on the show with him, and Bobby would interview various people and Jameson would be there to be a bit of a comedy relief character. Bobby's show didn't last that long. I don't think it lasted a year, so I'm going to blame Jameson for that, because Bobby Heenan is a national treasure to America, I think.
Yeah, I've not heard of Jameson before or since, and I'm not going to complain.
No. To the back, loud shouting promo by the Legion of Doom. Animals on a 6, Hawk is on a 9, Kokai. This is the golden age of promos, as I like to think. So when I think of the early 90s, I think of shouting men, sweating, and like they're off their heads. They largely say nothing, yet they still say something. They finish with Hawk basically saying that they're going to leave the natural disasters dead, with their tongues hanging out of their head like dead deer, and then that's it. So we've got the natural disasters with Jimmy Hart again getting a second payday versus the Legion of Doom, Hawk and Animal.
Natural disasters, but not his last.
No, this man got a good run tonight.
He's got a whole team of jobbers. He's like He's like the original Matt Hardy.
It's the big money Matt. Natural disasters obviously is earthquake and typhoon. He used to be tugboat in the early 90s. And before he was earthquake, he was Canadian earthquake as well, which is an interesting fact for you.
I know him as the Shark. John Tenta, the Shark.
That's correct, yes. Yeah. And he was also in the Oddities in Golga. The late 90s as well. Golga, yeah. Obviously past now, an immensely talented wrestler, I think. Ahead of his time for a big guy, I think. He was very similar to Bam Bam Bigelow, I like to think.
I think everyone in this match is gone. I'm not sure about Typhoon. But the other three are dead for sure.
I think Typhoon's still alive. I'm not sure, but yeah, you are right. Like, I mean, you know, majority of them are, if not all of them.
Yeah.
The Disasters come out first, followed by a mega pop for the Legion of Doom. Hawk and Animal look like $1 million here. Hawk starts with Typhoon, and Jesus, this goes to like 100 very quickly. He almost starts a fight, like a legit fight with Earthquake. It seems that the two lads are about to like kick off against each other because he slaps him on the back of the head. It was kind of scary. Hawk on his ultimate coke high at this stage, I guess. Hawk delivers a standing dropkick before Earthquake attempts a dropkick of his own, which was impressive. But Hawk sidesteps in his, definitely going to be a contender, I think.
Yeah.
Animal's tagged in but gets stopped by Typhoon after some fast offense by Animal, not Typhoon. Hawk's tagged back in but gets repeated rib breakers by Typhoon, which I thought looked great. He did this kind of short sort of slam on his knees.
There's a move in this earlier SmackDown games that Brock Lesnar did, which I'm sure he did in real life, where he hit people on his knee over and over, and it kind of reminded me of that.
Definitely. This was like a really slow match. It started hot, but then once the gas tanks were empty, it just drags. I loved Earthquake doing his constant flex, is flexing his fat muscles, because like he's not muscly at all.
Yeah, these guys have the gas mileage of a semi truck, so they start out quick, but
they do not get good mileage.
A mile down the road, they're out of gas.
Yeah, there's a great sell by Earthquake as Hawk hits a top rope elbow onto him and he falls back slowly like a tree. Oh, yeah. Like it's like somebody just chops a tree down and he just goes back really slowly. I thought it was class.
Yeah.
Animal gets tagged in with a super hot tag towards the end, delivering clotheslines to both men. Everyone brawls to the outside, but the fight is thrown out due to a count out. Though I saw no count out. The Disasters win, but the Legion of Doom retain their tag team titles in 9 minutes and 24 seconds. What did you think of this one?
Like you said, started out good. Animal was surprisingly quick, and also Legion of Doom looks surprisingly small compared to the other guys, even though they're both like 300-pound meatheads. But next to Earthquake and Typhoon, they look just like average Joes. I also wrote, Typhoon looks like a fat Brian Pillman Jr.,
with his mullet.
Yeah. Oh man, so many mullets on this show, by the way. Early 90s. And then I wrote, the Natural Disasters are idiots because they have to hear the referee counting, so they win with the count out and then they celebrate. And then I don't want to move forward too far, but the following segment they complain about it and they said they're going to involve lawyers and attorneys, and I'm like, well, you're extra idiots because your plan is not going to work, because clearly in the rules it says titles can only change hands with pinfall and submission. So these guys just burying themselves in this stupidity.
And what would you give it, star rating wise?
I'm gonna give it a 2 out of 5.
I'm being pushed to a 1.5 to bring it up slightly because it was nowhere near the levels of Jameson. But it was bullshit. A slow match, waste of time, gets thrown out at the end, doesn't make any sense. I'm glad you brought up the segment backstage because there are a lot of segments that this quickly cuts back to here, and I didn't know how I was going to handle this section, so I'm going to skip that because yes, Sean Mooney is in the back with the Natural Disaster straight after this match. They're all out of breath, doing shouty, rambly promos, but don't seem to know the rules. It's hilariously just randy because they can barely speak because they've probably had to book it back to wherever Sean Mooney is.
One thing I want to say about Legion of Doom, it's such a drastic contrast to Bushwackers because they're the next match, but they look just like two badasses. They're cool. Like I want to cheer them on. After the Bushwackers, it's like night and day.
They look like $1 million, the two of them. Physically, they just look unbelievable. Hawk especially was like God, I don't know how tall he was, but he looked massive. And yeah, just Animal was just such a powerhouse as well. But Bobby and Gorilla, as we've got our Sean Mooney segment over, Bobby and Gorilla then are thrown back to. They talk over, various personalities backstage again, and then they go backstage again. This gets an absolute mess, this segment here, to a giddy Roddy Piper looking to now win the WWF World Championship from the Rumble. It then cuts back to ringside before the Bobby and Gorilla then send it backstage to Sean Mooney again, who's now with Shawn Michaels. So to the back, Shawn Michaels recently sent Marty Jannetty through the barbershop window in an infamous angle, which was awesome, which saw the breakup of their tag team, the Rockers. Michaels in an awesome promo, and we get the whole sort of recap of this here. At least I got the video of him going through the window and everything. It was tremendous. And Michaels with a great line here. He doesn't say much, but the one thing he does say is he saves Marty Jannetty from 29 other beatings. And then he tries to get his catchphrase over at the time, which was, "I don't think so," which I didn't like the catchphrase.
That makes sense.
But I loved him saying.
Isn't it part of his song? Somewhere in there?
Possibly at the bit that you never hear because he's in the ring at that stage,
Like the part where he says, "Get off the merchandise" in the song. I think he says it somewhere in there.
I don't think so.
Yeah. But one thing I want to say about Shawn Michaels, which kind of surprised me, was his voice sounded very normal. I'm used to him talking like the Heartbreak Kid, Shawn Michaels. You know the way he talks now? Or like
like he smoked away the 20 packets of cigarettes a day,
Yeah, here he just like, well, Sean Mooney, I'm going to be in the Royal Rumble. And he just sounds completely normal.
He's in his 20s at this stage, but he looks about 35. Like he's bloated. Like if you look at him, he's massive compared to what he was in like the 97, even the early 2000s. Like he didn't increase in size, he shrunk from his 20s. It's so weird. Like he was bloated. Like I would imagine it's probably steroids, because I would imagine that they were all at the time, so they all just looked a bit swollen. But yeah, I loved this is my favorite version of Shawn Michaels, the Heartbreak Kid, the original, the guy who just breaks up with Marty Jannetty by kicking him in the face with a Sweet Chin Music, before it was the Sweet Chin Music, and then throwing him through the window. Great stuff.
Yep.
We cut back to ringside again before cutting backstage again to Lord Al and Ric Flair. Flair reveals that he's number 3 and that he's got to beat everyone else to prove that he's the man. And then we go back to ringside, back to Mean Gene. And I just have a note here that says, Jesus, how the fuck am I going to do this? Because I like doing those cutaways to backstage segments. I can't do it because there's too many. I'll be fucking chopping and change. It'll be as confusing as watching the live thing. So we're going to have to selectively pick here. But we'll get Shawn Michaels in because I think that segment's great.
Mm-hmm.
We get a roundup of personalities in pre-recorded little skits. So I will stick these in because they are great. I think so anyway. This is again the golden era of those promos. You've got Macho Man shouting some nonsense. You've got Sid Justice doing his whisper promo. We've got Repo Man doing his cackling little, hey, what's yours is mine, or mine too, sort of shit that he says. We've got Bulldog, who is the shits, who cannot talk. We've got Jake the Snake Roberts, who does an awesome, calm, vicious promo. Oh, Ric Flair, amazing.
What these Undertaker reminded me of?
Yes.
Have you ever played Nitro on PlayStation or Thunder?
Exactly, yes.
Yeah, those rants in the video. Like, they have these little video rants in the game when you select the characters. This is exactly what it reminded me of.
I love those. Yeah, Thunder, WCW NWO Thunder on the PlayStation. 100% love those little windows. Pick me. I remember Roddy Piper's one was, don't pick Hogan, pick me. it's great. Paul Bearer is great here as well. This is my favorite era, apart from the American Badass version of Undertaker. Paul Bearer sort of whining in his high-pitched voice, talking about 29 coffins for murdering people, apparently. Hulk Hogan does Coke level 8. He's on his high now. He slags off Jack Tunney and name drops Titan Towers. It's amazing. It's like you've got this little snippet of 1990 or 1989 wrestling promos in 1992 in this wee short window of promo packages of just these wrestlers rambling and ranting in front of green screens. It's tremendous.
I wish they would have done these throughout the show instead of just bunching them all together, because it would have kept the hype up for the Royal Rumble match. But here they just kind of crammed everything together. I think it would have been better if they spread it out.
Instead of the Bushwhacker match, let's just have lots of promo segments. I think that would have done. They could have just ditched that and just have a bunch of lads doing coked off their head promos instead of Bushwhackers.
Yeah.
So here we are. The Royal Rumble. Howard Finkel introduces the rules and then introduces President Jack Tunney. Tunney was the face of the WWF, at least, on screen. He's not really the president, obviously. He was actually from Canada. He was a Canadian promoter that Vince bought out eventually. Him and a brother, I think. So Vince got him in to be the fictitious president of the WWF. So Tunney gets the blame for everything. That's why you hear people constantly shitting on Tunney, because I don't think Vince particularly liked him. Tunney forgets the name of the Royal Rumble, so he just says this event. I don't know if you caught this.
Yes, he looked very confused. Like, he definitely forgot his lines.
He completely forgot his lines and just says the winner of this event.
Yeah.
I was just like, oh, scribble, scribble, scribble in the notebook, you fool, Jack Tunney.
You're fired.
Years later, he wouldn't realize he was going to get slagged by people on both sides of the Atlantic. We haven't done many Royal Rumbles, so I'm just going to go through the high notes of this package. Stop me at any stage if you have a note of this Royal Rumble, because there's so much. I forgot how hard it is to review a Royal Rumble. We've only done one before, and that was a modern one, I think.
Which possibly one was like it? I don't even remember.
2017, I think.
Oh yes, that was like one of the very first episodes
shows we did. Yeah, it was. I think that might have even been the first show we ever did together or something, or 2016 Rumble. It was something like that.
Yeah,
but
I remember now. Yeah.
British Bulldogs, our first participant. Ted DiBiase, $1 Million Man, is out second, accompanied by Sensational Sherry. And there's some creepy lad with a Sherry shirt and a sign in the crowd, just sort of like glaring at her. I don't know if you caught this dude. It was just really creepy. Like, he was really intently staring at her. It was kind of weird, and the camera did focus on him for a wee bit. DiBiase starts by working Bulldog over. He sends Bulldog over the top rope, but mistakenly thinks he's got him out, so Davey Boy rolls back in and then eliminates DiBiase straight up. Flair's out to his famous entrance. They used this for years and years and years and years to highlight, like in the late 90s anyway, or at least after WCW folded, to sort of promote the Royal Rumble. And anything that involved Flair, they would show this as like the sort of marquee sort of image of Ric Flair walking out, and then the camera zooming up the aisle to him, because he looks like $1 million here. This is classic Flair, Nasty Boys, Jerry Sags is out after an impressive rep gorilla press by Bulldog to Flair in the ring, so he does multiple reps before throwing him.
I was very disappointed that nobody got entrance music, because that's kind of like my favorite part of the Royal Rumble. Like, when their music hits, like, oh, it's kind of cool. But here they just walk out with no music.
Yeah, only the first two get entrance music, and not even Hulk Hogan got entrance music later on. So I think it's a trope of. I think it only came into effect after this one, possibly. Maybe in '94, but eventually it kicked in, and I like that excitement too, because when you see somebody coming out and there's no music, you've no idea who it is, and especially I don't even think they didn't have the sort of little the little on-screen cards to tell you who the people were. I don't think either. I think I was relying on Gorilla and Bobby to tell me who they were.
Yeah.
Because there were a few that, even though I know this time period, there are a few wrestlers I wasn't. It took me a minute to recognize them, like the Barbarian, for instance. Zags brags on the apron after surviving an elimination by Bulldog, but Bulldog drop kicks him for the elimination on him. Shawn Michaels is out next, but gets gorilla pressed by Bulldog. Flair takes tons of shortcuts in this match. I mean, as we mentioned at the start, eye pokes, face rakes, eye pokes. It's amazing.
You know that thing where he hits you and then he does one of these things like, oh, don't hurt me. He does this like 20 times in this match.
It's amazing. Tito Santana, aka El Matador, is out next, followed by the Barbarian. Texas Tornado Kerry Von Erich whirls his way down to the entrance ramp and then starts delivering discus punches left, right, and center. And Shawn Michaels sells a discus or a tornado punch like a tornado had literally lifted him into the sky at one stage. He sold this like $1 million.
At this stage, to be honest, I fell asleep for a few minutes. I didn't sleep for too long because when I opened my eyes, I didn't really recognize anyone new that entered except for Texas Tornado. And for a moment, I thought it was the Ultimate Warrior, but skinny, because they had a similar attire.
Yeah, I always preferred Tornado to Warrior. I think he looks way better.
I've never really seen the Texas Tornado before, but while we were talking about him, it's Kerry Von Erich, you said?
Yes, it is, yes.
Because I always get them mixed up. There's like 10 of them or something like that.
There's not many of. There's one now. There's one brother and then 2 sons of the brother. So yeah.
But I actually very recently watched the Dark Side of the Ring episode about them, and they actually mentioned this Royal Rumble, and they said like there was something wrong with his ankle at this stage. It was like a prosthetic or something.
It was, yeah. He was missing the lower half of his foot on one side completely.
Yeah, and I thought that was very fascinating. And actually, when they throw him out, he kind of falls over on it in this match. And this was like one of his last appearances, I believe, before he killed himself.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
It's a tragic story. I think that this guy was immensely talented. He looked like $1 million. Foot or no foot, I mean, I think that he would still look great in the ring. I think it was one of his, or maybe 2 of his brothers had passed away before this. Yes. And Ric Flair, I think it was in the Dark Side of the Ring, had an NWA championship match with him and lost to Kerry in like an arena. These guys were huge in Texas, like the Von Erichs, and Kerry was like their sort of, I guess, their golden child, because he was the one that was like athletically amazing. It's like fucking 6 or 7 foot tall. Just amazing looking. I really liked the Texas Tornado as not so much the character, but just the look and the presentation. I thought was great with the little tassels on the boots and stuff. He was too similar to the Warrior, I think, is where they perhaps went wrong. But I think if Warrior wasn't there, they would have shot him to the moon. So
also in that Dark Side of the Ring episode, they said how stupid the Texas Tornado name was because nobody knew who he was, but everybody knew the Von Erichs.
Yeah, it was basically Vince trying to put a rubber stamp on something he didn't own so he could market it and sell it.
Yeah.
And he couldn't always sell Kerry Von Erich if Kerry Von Erich had left. So that's why you find a lot of people, apart from Ric Flair, is one of the very early exceptions to that rule. But, and Dusty Rhodes as well, because they were so well known. Kerry Von Erich was upcoming at that sort of, in those sort of stages. But yeah, it's worth noting. I think Kerry Von Erich is an important person in this Rumble, as it being one of his last, performances.
Yeah.
Repo Man comically sneaks his way down to the ring, followed by Greg the Hammer Valentine with a massive roidy belly, to steal an OSW reference. This guy is out of shape, but in shape at the same time. It's hilarious.
Somebody said he looks like a female PE teacher. It's on Twitter, and I just can never get that out of my head.
I love that. Absolutely love it. Yes. Yes, I had a PE teacher who looked like him at one stage, and it was a woman. Yeah, it's amazing. Nikolai Volkov's out next, again, looking very much out of shape, but in shape. And he's thrown out in short order by Repo Man, and then Repo has a good old chuckle in the ring. Big Boss Man's out next to a huge pop. Greg's thrown out by Repo Man, and then Boss Man eliminates the criminal Repo. Flair finally gets the exhausted Bulldog out after like nearly 40 minutes, I think. Bulldog at that stage,
it's for a long time.
It's impressive considering like how gassed he was by the end of like the first 3 wrestlers that were in the ring with him.
Yeah. And his hair was a mess.
Oh Jesus! It looked like he'd been mopping the floors with his hair. Like, it was unbelievable.
Yeah.
That look never does anything for a man. Like the long, like a mullet. Think of a mullet but with braids. It's it's horrific. It's one of the worst haircuts ever.
Oh my God! I'm in tears right now.
Texas Tornado is eliminated by Ric Flair. Shawn Michaels is eliminated by El Matador. Hercules makes his way down to the ring and eliminates his former tag partner, the Barbarian.
At first, I thought Hercules was Jake the Snake Roberts, because they look kind of the same.
Way too roidy to be Jake Roberts.
Yeah,
Jesus.
yeah. But like the hair and the outfit looked like.
Oh yeah. I think I missed the Barbarian coming in, but it doesn't matter. He was in quite early, and he was in for a long while. But
yeah,
him and Hercules used to get managed by Bobby, so there's a bit of back and forth and commentary between Gorilla and Bobby. Bossman eliminates Hercules at the same time. Hercules at the same time. Herc's getting rid of Barbarian, so those two go over the top by Bossman. There's a standing, and the ring is completely clear apart from Bossman and Flair at this stage, and there's a standing crescent kick by Big Bossman to Ric Flair. That was like, he just whipped it out of nowhere, and it was like a full like karate taekwondo kick to the face of Flair.
It's like in the video games, if you like mess with people's moves and you give like if you give the Big Show like the Booker T sidekick or something, that's what this looked like.
It's unbelievable, and the commentators don't really even bat an eyelid. It's just like, oh yeah, that's something he does, and it's like, no, it's amazing. Nobody else is doing that at the time. Bossman launches himself at Flair and then almost dies, getting caught in the ropes to eliminate himself. This was horrific. Like, he went over the top eventually, and then he got his head caught underneath the bottom rope and almost like whiplashed himself. It was horrific. Absolutely horrific. Especially when you think about the weight of him, because he's a big lad.
Yeah, he's a big boy.
Roddy Piper comes out next and runs wild on Flair. Jake the Snake's out next and methodically takes his time before blindsiding Piper. Hacksaw Jim Duggan comes out, hoeing his way to the ring. IRS, Jimmy Snuka are out shortly afterwards, and then we get The Undertaker.
Throughout this match, I kept thinking the IRS was the referee, because he has like a very similar attire as a referee would.
The reason why I was late getting this finished was I watched this Royal Rumble match, the end part, with my son, my 7-year-old, just to sort of, because I thought he might enjoy seeing it, so we watched it together, the most of it, and he was intrigued up to a point. After the 47-minute mark, he was checked out of this.
Has he ever seen any Royal Rumble before, or was this his first?
None. No, this was his first. So he was fascinated by it. He couldn't understand what was going on. I explained the rules to him, and he was like, right, okay. And then somebody else came out, and he was like, somebody else is coming out now. And then whenever somebody went over the top, he was really excited by it. He found, and some of the spots in the ring as well, he found hilarious. If somebody got hit in the nuts, like Shawn Michaels was getting hung up on the ropes by his groin, and he found that, like, he burst out laughing, was near on the floor with tears. He found it so funny.
I think he may enjoy one of the more recent Rumbles, probably, because they have like have the better presentation and everything.
Possibly, yeah. Maybe a not a modern one, but maybe like a 99 or a early 2000s Rumble, perhaps he might
maybe. The 2002 one is pretty good. No, 2003. The one
2003, yeah.
Lesnar wins. Yeah, that might.
Oh yeah. So Undertaker's out. He throws Jimmy Murder Snooker straight out. Macho Man races to the ring but gets blindsided and beaten up before Jake finds him and sneak attacks him. Randy eliminates Snake and then basically eliminates himself like the Boss Man did. Sort of. Taker saves the day by coming out and actually having to escort Macho Man back into the ring.
This was so strange. I'm pretty sure this was a botch. Because Macho Man, he jumped over the top rope because that was his way of exiting the ring. I guess he usually did that. And he was so fired up, he did that on accident, jumped over the top rope, and he got eliminated. And then the commentators were trying to make up excuses why he's not eliminated. And they said, well, you have to be thrown out by someone else in order to be eliminated. And I'm like, well, Boss Man just got eliminated. He eliminated himself. So it was just, it kind of took me out of the match.
Yes, it was a botch by Macho Man for sure.
I think they should have just called an audible somehow and just had Macho Man be gone. That probably would have done more for his character because he's so enraged with Jake the Snake that he just got lost in his adrenaline and eliminated himself because he was raged. But here he just looks silly. Yeah,
this was... And there was a reason, at the time that him and Jake were feuding, where this is just after, I guess, within a year perhaps of Macho Man returning back to a face character, a good guy. Up until probably the middle of 1991 or late 91. He was the Macho King, Randy Savage. He turned heel. He was aligned with Sherry Martel, and then Liz, his wife, was sort of cast to the side, and then.
No, you're frozen again. What happened? Oh, you're back.
Yeah, no, I'm good. You never cut out for me at all. I think it's maybe your internet's cut out.
Ah, man.
It's not good.
I don't know what's going on. But it's
hopefully we. So, I think, I don't know how much you caught of that, but...
Macho Man was feuding with Jake the Snake, and then...
Yes. So, so he was like the Macho King, and then he turned face, and then when he turns face and he reunites with Liz, I believe they get married, and then Jake the Snake starts his sort of campaign of terror against the Macho Man by nearly hitting Liz in the head with a chair as she comes through the...
What is going on? You cut out again.
I can hear you.
You're frozen. Maybe we should... I'm gonna disconnect and connect again to the call.
Okay. Yep.
That is so annoying. My internet is wired, so there should be no problems. I'm not sure what's going on. That's so very annoying and frustrating. I'm sure it's going to be a pain in the ass to edit.
We'll get there, yeah. So this would basically all lead up to Jake the Snake tying Macho up in the ring and then using a snake to bite him on the arm. I don't know if you've ever seen that.
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah, so this is like a blood feud, like the worst kind of blood feud where they're just, Macho Man wants to kill him. So I think you're exactly right. He should have gone out because Macho Man does very little after this. So there was no reason for him to come back into the ring. So I totally agree.
I was going to say, he doesn't really do anything significant in this match afterwards, so he should have just stayed out.
Totally. There's a low blow by Ric Flair to The Undertaker, who has to sell it like a monster. So he just sort of stands there like he's like falling asleep. It's horrific. The Berserker hosses his way down to the ring, Virgil comes out next, followed by Colonel Mustafa, which is the Iron Sheik, I believe.
Oh, yeah.
And then we get Rick Martel. Colonel Mustafa gets eliminated shortly after by Randy Savage. And then finally we get Hulk Hogan making his way to the ring and ends up eliminating The Undertaker in short order.
And Hogan actually runs. It's surreal to watch him run.
Yeah, I'm surprised his knees can take it. Berserker is also limited by Hulk, and then Hacksaw is eliminated by Virgil, but technically by himself too. Skinner is out next, who is the tobacco chewing Gator Skinner. Sergeant Slaughter is out after him. Short-lived gimmick, yeah. And then followed by Sid Justice out next, and then our last boy out is Warlord. This took forever to get to. I was surprised it took so long. I was like an hour of just very little happening apart from those opening moments, so it was quite a long rumble, it felt like.
I don't know what was going on with my hearing, but I kept thinking they said the Wardlow, and I'm like,
Wardlow.
What? Did the new Wardlow copy this guy? But then, yeah.
Oh god, no. Hulk and Flair take it to the outside, and Hulk suplexes Flair onto the mat, which I didn't think was fair to Flair. IRS is eliminated by Piper by his tie, and then let me ask you a question.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to know where the beef is?
No. Well, yeah, tell me.
It's Warlord getting eliminated by Hogan and Sid, which is a line by either Gorilla or Bobby.
Right. I remember now, yes.
There's the beef. That's the beef right there. You don't know where the beef is? It's right there.
Honestly, I thought all the beef was in that LOD match.
No, Warlord was like two men in one. He was like a transformer of beef. It was unbelievable. He was a meat transformer.
Did he ever have any other gimmicks? Because he's such a big dude. I feel like someone else would have gave him a chance. Because I've never heard of him.
He was the bodyguard of like 50 Cent or someone.
Oh, really? Was he not WCW at all?
Possibly. I mean, I think everyone had a flipping.
Yeah, this entire card was in WCW by 1997.
Yeah.
Okay. I recognize him. I recognize him in these pictures where he kind of looks like the Barbarian, with like he has like a stick of some kind and he has like face paint.
Yeah. He did bodyguarding, and he was the bodyguard of 50 Cent, Thomas Jones, who I think is an NFL player, and then Kimbo Slice, who was a mixed martial artist, which makes no sense.
Yeah,
why you would need a bodyguard?
Be the bodyguard, yeah.
Yeah, it's a strange one, but yeah, he ended up being a bodyguard to 50 Cent, which is kind of random. So even though he's nobody here, he did quite
wrestles, well. It says. He says he still wrestles at 59 years old.
Jesus. Good Lord. I wouldn't like to see him wrestling now because he never did particularly a great job back in the day.
Yeah.
We get Sid eliminating both Piper and Martel, and then Macho is eliminated by Sid with a big assist from knee by Flair. Hogan tries to eliminate Flair. Sid sneaks up behind and eliminates him, and then Hulk Hogan grabs Sid's arm while he's complaining on the outside for being eliminated. And this is while everyone in the crowd is cheering on my version, and I say that with a little asterisk next to it. Everyone in the crowd is cheering, seeing Hulk Hogan getting eliminated here.
Yeah, there was a big pop when he got eliminated.
Yes, and then Flair comes from behind while Hogan's dragging Sid over the top and eliminates Sid and wins the Royal Rumble. And Flair is the winner, and immediately then it's the Hulk Hogan show, as immediately Hogan rolls into the ring and starts complaining and pointing at Flair, and Flair scarpers to the outside. Sid comes into the ring, he slaps Hogan in the back of the head, pulls his hair, and then we get a pull apart, and the crowd boo Hogan quite loudly.
He's at his Cody Rhodes stage at this time.
It's hilariously poor taste, like to sort of insult your crowd like this, to pull out somebody and then pretend that you're the one that's been hard done by. And Sid...
I want to say one thing, though. You did tell me there was going to be bollocks on this show, and when I saw Hogan on the card, I was like, oh man, it's got to be with him. But when I saw this, I actually didn't think it was that bad. I was expecting something worse.
Well, I'll explain. There's bollocks, but it comes with a bit of a caveat around this. So Sid's walking up the entrance ramp and shouts, "I'll kill you," as he leaves, which I don't know if they had in the Peacock version,
I heard
but
that, yeah.
It's amazing. So basically, what the WWF did was they didn't want Hulk Hogan to be the bad guy at this stage, and he was getting booed. He was actually getting booed at like house shows. He was getting booed. You could see people in the crowd with signs saying Hogan who, and like, you know, other people like, you know, with signs and stuff. But what they did was they changed the audio version for the version that they released on VHS. So for any streaming content later as well, they often would get the version that Hogan gets, or Sid gets booed when he eliminates Hulk Hogan, and they even got Gorilla Monsoon to overdub his lines, because in the version I heard, Gorilla says, "Well, that's fair because there's no friends in the Royal Rumble," and then they got Monsoon to overdub it again and say, "That wasn't fair, and it was a cheap shot by Sid Justice, and he shouldn't have done it." And it was like, you can't rewrite something once the milk's, you know, out of the carton. You can't put it back in, or the toothpaste out of the tube, whatever analogy you want to use.
We had about 300 eye pokes and low blows in this match, but Hogan, if you eliminate Hogan, then that's a cheap shot.
It's hilarious. It just shows lack of complete care for your fans, I think. Mm-hmm. And I think as well that it's not something that they've not used again. You know, they've used it with Roman Reigns up until very recently when they were doing their, you know, don't watch anymore, but I listen to, like, you know, the post-wrestling SmackDown and Raw reviews. And they were doing it in the sort of the Thunderdome, as they called it, with the video screens and stuff, and they would have Roman cheered even though there's nobody in attendance, you know, and it's kind of like, it's kind of just poor taste. It just slaps your fans in the face and just says, you'll like who we want you to like, and we don't care who you like. So I'm not a big fan of this.
They're even doing this now. They're just so obvious with it. WWE always made fun of WCW for piping in Goldberg chants, but what they're doing now is just so much worse and more obvious. Like the sound of the crowd just explodes when someone comes out, but you can see the crowd's just sitting there quiet and not reacting to anything.
They even had, I think, when they played an audio track one time recently, they had Michael Cole in the audio track of the cheering. It was really obvious, but they claimed it was a technical error, but we'll see. What did you think of the Rumble overall?
Rumble is probably one of my most favorite matches, the match type of the Rumble. It's always very exciting. It's never a good match from like a technical point, because there's no room to do anything. Everyone's just kind of hanging on ropes and punching and kicking, and in this case, eye poking. But there's just something about the Rumble, the anticipation of who's coming out next. They never seem to drag, even though they go for an hour or longer in some cases. Even though it's pretty obvious who's going to win, you still never know. There's still surprising years where we get surprise winners. This one, I already knew who was going to win, so I wasn't too excited about the outcome because I knew the outcome, but it was still very impressive to see Ric Flair go all the way. And the Rumble was good. I don't really know how to rate Rumbles. So
yeah, it's hard to rate.
Yeah. I gave this one a 3 out of 5.
I'd give it a 3, yeah. I think that's fair. I think for the era, I think it's the best Rumble to pick of the early 90s. Because I think that it just has so many different characters, like cartoon characters of wrestlers, you know, Ric Flair, Hulk Hogan, Undertaker, you know, Macho Man. It's amazing. You're just missing the Ultimate Warrior from it, I think, to have like the perfect trifecta of those sort of big roidy 80s, 90s wrestlers. But yeah, I thought overall it was very good as well.
The fact that it was for the world title also made it more special, because it made the title feel so important.
Yeah, they wouldn't do that until recently again. And I think it was between Reigns or Brock or somebody won it.
Roman Reigns had to defend his title in the Royal Rumble as a number 1 entry. But of course, he got injured, quote unquote injured, like 10 minutes into it. And he sat in the back for like 30 minutes and then came back.
Yeah, not great.
Then Triple H won, I believe.
Oh, that's right. Yes, Triple H did win it. Wow. Yeah. I like the idea of the Royal Rumble being for the championship, but I think it's kind of better to have it for a main event opportunity at WrestleMania, even though you may not actually get the main event slot at WrestleMania anymore. Yeah. It's just wherever we want to put you, you're going to get, which cheapens the win slightly.
Yeah.
To the back, Ric Flair cuts a great promo with a tear in his eye here. I'll just splice it in. And Mean Gene says, "Put that cigarette out." And it is one of my favorite backstage promos, because I think Flair is on like a high. All the adrenaline is still in him. He's going crazy. You know he's going out to drink and have a good old time. He's going to go to his
hotel room and host the first ever Women's Royal Rumble.
Quite possibly at this time, yeah. And yeah, that's the end of the show. We get I got some jazzy closing montage of the show with some of the worst still shots I've ever seen, which I will be inserting that music right in. It was awful, but yeah, I thought this was great. So yeah, overall I thought the show was I think it was good. If I had to give it out of 5, I'd give it 3.5, just for fun, I think.
It's very hard to rate, because there's first of all, this is like way out of my comfort zone, as you know, because this is like way before I started watching, and it's so hard to not make comparisons to modern product or even like Attitude Era product. I'm probably gonna go with a 5 out of 10 as an average show, because the Rumble itself was exciting, but none of the other matches were impressive at all by any means, except for a couple Owen Hart moves. Yeah. The Bushwackers match I just hope... This is one of these times where I kind of hope to get some kind of amnesia and forget about certain things in life, and this match is one of them. So yeah, that's my final verdict on the show.
Okay, well, that's fair enough. So yeah, over to you for our awards. We can briefly go through it. Yeah.
To the WrestleBlast Awards show, which is like a podcast within a podcast, where we give awards for various different categories. I'm so disappointed, because on the TNA video, I made this amazing graphics. It looked like the Oscars and everything. And they had like the Oscars music and everything. And oh man. One day I'll show you the video that I made. I'm so proud of it, but YouTube just destroyed everything.
Yeah, I used copyright free music for that one on the audio feed. So if you're listening to the audio feed, you'll get a little bit of I did add a little bit of pomp and circumstance to it, so.
All right, so speaking of pomp and circumstance, our first category is Best Entrance. And for this show, since it didn't have as many matches and it didn't have as many like different entrances, instead of 4 nominees for every category, I have 3.
Okay, that's fair enough.
So for Best Entrance, we have Roddy Piper and his big pop that he got. The freaking Bushwackers, because... Say what you want, their entrance was quite a bit different from everyone else. And the third nominee was Legion of Doom.
Legion of Doom all the way.
I agree. That's our winner. The best entrance of the night was Legion of Doom. This next category, I do have 4 nominees. This is only one. And I renamed this category called Dress to Impress, which is the best attire of the night.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
First nominee is the British Bulldog. I thought his pants were pretty cool.
His hair can get in the bin.
It looked like it was in the bin.
Yeah.
Second nominee is the New Foundation. Their Sabu pajamas. Third nominee is the Macho Man with his purple and gold Lakers looking attire. And last but not least is Jake the Snake Roberts with his pants that he has in the 2K games.
Jake the Snake Roberts. Yeah, this is my favorite Jake outfit. The fire trousers, tremendous.
Yeah, I like that outfit. That's my favorite Jake too. All right, the Joey Styles Award, the Oh My God Award, the Owen Hart Jungle Boy Springboard Flip.
Yeah.
Earthquake with a dropkick attempt. And last but not least, I'm not sure if you even mentioned this, but when Sergeant Slaughter got eliminated, he got tossed out like he's Spike Dudley.
Oh God, yeah, I forgot about that. Yes, he did indeed. He nearly landed on his head.
I don't remember who threw him out. I'm sure it's in my notes.
It's probably in my notes.
It was
Sid. Yes,
he just launched him like a rocket into the turnbuckle, and it was very impressive to see. So that's actually my pick for the winner, was the Sergeant Slaughter elimination.
Yes, I will go for the Sergeant Slaughter elimination because it is, oh my God, is that man alive?
Next category is the Comedy Gold Medal, which is the funniest moment of the night. Number 1, Bobby Heenan asking for a drink in the middle of the Royal Rumble. He was like, "Hey, you idiot, bring me a drink." The second nominee is Ric Flair clearing out the ring during the Royal Rumble and then hitting his infamous Flair flop in the middle of the ring. And last but not least, Mean Gene asking someone to put their cigarette out. In the middle of
put the
promo.
cigarette out. Put the cigarette out.
I agree.
Yeah. I never cease to laugh at that when I see it.
Next one was a little bit hard for me because, and you may want to add your own to this one because I didn't write it down, but the Fire Russo Award. I know Vince Russo was not part of the show, but this is the award that we call as Bullshit of the Night. So even before and after this man dies, the award will always be in his name.
Oh, don't worry, I have a solid pick for this one. Don't you worry about that.
And bring it up if I don't mention it, because I'm pretty sure your pick is not on my nominee list. So
okay.
My 3 nominees are the referee harassing Jim the Anvil Nate Hart during the tag team match. He would just not let him in. Second one is the tag title match finish, where the Natural Disasters win by count out and they think they won the belts, but they didn't. And my third nominee is all the excuses for why Savage was not eliminated, even though he did in fact eliminate himself.
Oh yeah, mine is not in there.
Okay, yours must be the Hogan one.
No, it's not even.
Oh. Okay, what is it?
Do you know what mine is? My Russo award this week goes to Jameson, because this is the sort of shit that Vince Russo would book. He wins.
I can't.
I want him off my screen. I want him off my screen. I never want to see that man again.
Don't you think he deserves a certain different award?
Oh, he'll win any award that
you're
involves
gonna give him 2?
shit.
Okay,
He will. Maybe we need to rename an award the Jameson Award, because it is just horrific. This man. If I could lump the Bushwackers in, let's just say the Bushwacker package for this one. So this is the Russo Award goes to the teaming of Jameson with the Bushwackers.
You know what? I'm gonna agree with that. Bushwackers. I'm gonna write that down. And Jameson.
Perfect.
All right. This is going to be a little tricky because we don't have very many matches on the show. So one of the matches is nominated for both Worst of the Night and Best of the Night. So that's going to be a little weird.
Jesus. Okay.
Worst match of the night is the Mountie versus Roddy Piper. We don't even need to mention all these nominees. We already know who's going to win, but we got to keep it professional.
Okay.
The Natural Disasters versus LOD, and last but not least, the Bushwackers against the Beverly Brothers.
Those lads are going to be going for a hat trick tonight, because it is definitely that match. Yes, it is the worst match I have seen in a long, long time.
It's the worst match of that year, probably.
Quite possibly, yes.
All right, moving on to best match of the night. The Orient Express versus the New Foundation. The Natural Disasters versus LOD. And the Royal Rumble match.
I'm going to go for the Royal Rumble match. I just think that there's a lot in it. It's a variety show of performers. There's some decent moves in it, and there's some nice spots, like the Sergeant Slaughter getting near killed and Big Boss Man near getting killed. So, yeah.
I agree 100%. Next one next two categories are ones that we just call out. We don't have nominees for them, but the Great Khali Award, which is the Get Him Off My Screen Award, is the one
Jameson.
and only Jameson.
We may need to rename this award the Jameson Award because it's almost unfair to the Great Khali to a degree because he's not as bad as Jameson. So I think that Jameson trumps the Great Khali.
Maybe we can have it when we do shows before like the year 2000. It's the Jameson Award. If it's after the year 2000, it's the Great Khali Award.
I'm going to have to petition for it just to be called the Jameson Award because I don't think we're going to ever find, unless we get to that Jenna Maraska pay-per-view, and then we may need to rename it the Jenna Maraska Award. But yes, for now we can go for that option, the divide.
I'm very open to it. I'm very open to renaming it the Jameson Award. And you know what?
Okay.
I don't have to redo the graphics because YouTube did not allow me to do them anyway, so... It's a lot easier to change. Otherwise, I would have had to change all the graphics and everything.
Awesome.
Last but not least, the Most Valuable Player or Performer Award, the MVP of the night.
That'll be Ric Flair.
Yep, Ric Flair.
Over an hour. I think it's a standout performance, standout Royal Rumble victory. Whatever you think of Flair nowadays, back then this was like the gold standard, I think, of Royal Rumble performances, and wouldn't be replicated until God knows who did the last sort of long haul. Maybe Michaels, maybe.
I think Shawn Michaels. Wasn't Shawn Michaels the first one to win it from number one?
Possibly, yeah. They used this as the template. Originally, it was Bobby the Brain Heenan who suggested that Flair should come out at number one and go the whole distance. And Vince vetoed the idea and then changed his mind and said, I'll come out at number 3, and then came up with the idea. He's like, isn't that a great idea? So, stole Bobby's idea. God bless Bobby. If we can have an honourable mention of MVP, it should be Bobby the Brain Heenan, because I think he was tremendous on this show.
I was thinking about doing like some kind of announcer commentator award, but then I figured it's going to be the same people winning every time. It's going to be JR and Bobby. And
I think you could have an end of year show where we can sort of go back and look at some of these, we could pick, you could have your announcer of the year, you could have your match of the year, you could have your, something like that. So similar sort of thing. So there you go, folks. We're going to do that. A big gala at the end of the year.
I have this whole table set up.
Happy days.
And everything, yeah. So those are our awards.
There you go, folks. Our next show, well, I think we discussed it briefly the last time. I think you had mentioned it in a couple of times as well about maybe doing the Royal Rumble 2000 perhaps as our next show moving ahead, into the year 2000, the Millennium Bug year. It was the runner-up. And again, I suppose I should have said at the start, but thanks to everyone who voted in our poll on Twitter and on Spotify, because I did put up a poll on Spotify. We even got a few votes as well on Spotify too, so people are listening. So we got 5 or something votes on Twitter, and then we got a few extra on Spotify. So we're getting there, so I do appreciate anyone who
next time I'll do one for YouTube also. So we'll have all kinds of polls. We're gonna have the Russo's extravaganza next time.
YouTube on a poll match, yeah. So there you go. That's gonna be our next match. And without further ado, it's goodbye from me.
And can't think of any funny quips related to this show, so I'm just gonna say goodbye from me as well.
There you go.